This video shows how I used heat shrink tubing to replace the cracked plastic coverings on my Carlisle rafting oars. If your oars are as old as mine, the plastic covering over the aluminum core shaft is probably beginning to crack. Besides being kind of ugly, especially when repaired with duct tape, the edges of the cracked plastic can be sharp, presenting a safety hazard. I decided to recover my oars using heat shrink tubing. The first step is to remove the old cracked plastic. I found that a utility knife works pretty well to cut through the plastic where needed so you can strip it off. Please use gloves when working with this stuff. It's stiff and can have sharp edges. I also did a quick sanding of the shaft to remove dirt and bumps, so now you have a nice clean aluminum shaft and it's time to cover it. I got my heat shrink tubing from cabletiesandmore.com. This is 2-inch diameter tubing. It takes about 10 feet of tubing to do a 10-foot oar. It's sold in 25 and 100-foot lengths. 25 wouldn't be enough, so I got the roll of 100 feet. The shaft's only 92 inches long, but you need a little extra, and as shown below, I also added a second layer on part of the shaft. So for my 3 oars, I used about 30 feet of tubing. I cut a piece of tubing to length and slipped it over the shaft, leaving a few inches on either end beyond the ends of the shaft. I found very little lengthwise shrinking, but there was some. I wiped down the tubing to remove small pieces of dirt, otherwise they might get melted into the covering. The heat gun works great to shrink the tubing. I started on the handle end, and it takes a bit of time to get the tubing to shrink to a good smooth fit. Since the tubing's rolled flat, there are ridges on either side that need special attention. Using the heat gun carefully, I got a good smooth and tight fit. I smoothed this kind of uneven shrinkage and bubbling by carefully applying more heat. Wearing a leather glove is a good idea as the tubing can get pretty warm. I worked my way down the entire shaft, smoothing with the heat gun. The hole where the button from the blade shaft fits needs to be good and tight. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes of heating per oar. Also, you need to be careful not to touch the tubing with the end of the heat gun as you can nick it. Yeah, I did that a couple times. After some cooling, it's time to do some trimming. The hole where the button on the blade shaft fits should be cleaned carefully, and where the blade inserts on the shaft end also needs to be cleaned out. The excess tubing on the handle end should be removed. The tubing isn't quite as thick as the original plastic coating, so I needed to put a second layer of tubing in the area where the black plastic sleeve fits. I cut a piece of tubing to the length of the sleeve, marked the spot where my sleeves sit for my setup, and heated the second layer into place. The second layer gives the sleeve a better fit onto the shaft. You may or may not need to do this depending on how your oars are set up. So now I've got 3 pretty good looking oars with no jagged plastic on them. I'm not sure how the tubing will hold up, but I will be treating the oars with UV protectant and plan to get them out on the water a lot in 2020. Hope to see you there.